Hey guys, it's Evan. It's a super exciting time of year for a lot of people that are interested in boas because two things are happening. Some people, really lucky people, are having litters of boas, and then the rest of us are getting baby boas sometime soon. And so I thought now would be a good time to just make a little video about young true red-tailed boas, how I set mine up, and how I keep them, because I think there's going to be a lot of that happening for new people, and I'd like to let you know how I do it. I'd encourage you to pay attention to what I'm saying. I'd also encourage you to pay attention to what a lot of the other successful keepers are doing, because we all do things a little differently. But I think what you'll see here are some good general guidelines on how to set up your baby boas. I'm specifically talking about your true red-tailed boas the first year or so that you're keeping them. So here we go. All right, I wanted to make sure I got a bunch of really nice shots of boas for you in here. So I was lucky enough to have a litter, small litter of really healthy, robust, large Guyana boas last year. This is a female holdback that I'm keeping. I'm naming her Dot because of the two dots on the end of her tail. But these are really fantastic animals, guys. If you buy into a true red-tailed boa, if you buy into a healthy one from a captive bred one from a good breeder, and you put the time into it, all these boas are going to be phenomenal, because I always see people asking, what is the best one? What is going to get me the biggest, whatever. I would just tell you to really focus on the joy in the journey, acquire something that's appealing to you, and really focus on great care, and you're going to end up with a really impressive animal. So these are a couple of holdback males that I have from that litter, so you can just see them. They're a little bit smaller. I find the males to be a little bit smaller initially, at least, than the females. Two males. I had a female heavy litter, so I only had 3 males. This really aberrant one, which I think is all related to a ladder tail in this litter. And then this really classically colored, really colorful one. I don't know if you can pick up on these, but in person, they almost look like brook trouts in that they have that much color on this side. So really aberrant male, and then a really nice colorful male with some open saddling, which I really like. So you just can see something. Maybe you guys can find something like this. Let me show you some females. These females are a little bit larger than the males so far. These two females happen to be available. So here's a female. You can see them. This one's going to be overall a little bit darker, I think. It's got a ladder tail, somewhat of one. The father of this litter had a ladder tail, and it showed up in some of the babies. So this is a female. I don't know if you can see, but they're probably about 30% bigger than the males at this point. And then this is another female. This one has a spicy personality. She might hiss at you. I'm going to kind of talk about how you deal with that, but this one's really a neat one. Also, she doesn't have a ladder tail, but I almost held this one back. She's really big and robust. She's also available, but some good color. If you see, she's a much more nervous snake. These snakes were born in November, so they're about 7 months old at this point. And she's the only one that's still displaying a little bit of that nervousness, but they're pretty bite adverse, even her. You know, if you can kind of keep them distracted, they'll key in here, and then you can come in with the other hand. I'm going to try to get a video of this with somebody else holding it, so I can show you how to pick these up without getting bit, because if I try to do it with one hand, I will get bit. So I'll put that in at the end of the video. But just so you guys have some really good looks about different animals and what you might be expecting when you're getting a sub-year-old baby boa, that's kind of what you're going to be getting. Hopefully, if you're getting a nice, healthy one. And then this is kind of my larger setup. So you can see they are sizable animals. I do consider these intermediate animals, both because their care parameters aren't so hard to meet, but they're pretty critical that you keep, and also just because their size, they're going to be needing 4 and 6 foot cages as adults. So that kind of leads me into my next piece, which is what I consider the housing, humidity, and hygiene. I'm going to kind of lump them all together, because the housing is the physical object in which you house them in, and then the humidity and the heat and the hygiene are parameters you need to maintain. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I keep most of this litter in 41 quart tubs. So let's see, this is how I'm set up, and this is going to take care of them and manage all their needs for at least for the first year. But I have a humid hide box in the backs. So this is wet moss with a little hole in it. There's a female. You can see right there. And what's happening here is the overall humidity in this room and in these cages probably relatively on the lower end for the true red-tailed boas. I'm going to say about 60 to 70%. And then I buffer that low humidity with Humid Hide Box. I do that in the large vivariums also. And so I keep all of my snakes at the lower ends of the recommended humidities. And then I offer them Humid Hide Box. I think it's better to contain the humidity within a little hide box where they can access it if they need to, but then they can also, they don't deal with the dank, moist air as much. So that's one way to deal with your humidity. Temperatures here, you can see, I just opened these cages up so it dropped a little bit, but right now it's reading at 80.6. I'd say that that's an ambient temperature reading. Usually it's reading anywhere from 81 to 84 degrees in there. I think I have the heat tape set at 88, and it puts the bottom of the, right over the heat mat at about 86, 87. My general ambient room is at about 72 always. I try to do that. So you can definitely set up your babies in a rack, and if you have a number of them, that's probably a better option. But the other way you can do it, and I'd probably encourage you to do it this way if you're just buying one, is to go ahead and invest in a professionally built 4-foot vivarium. This is an Animal Plastics ones. I'll just tell you, I think they're great. All these cages in here are Animal Plastics. I think they're the best value if you can deal with the long wait. But up in here, I have a 75-watt Pro Product heat panel, and it's being controlled by a thermostat probe that's dangling down like that. So other than that, you can see how I also have human microenvironments here. I have basically a humid hide. It's a cat litter tray with some wet coconut mulch and a plastic hide. I have a larger humid box over here. I have some hide box, and I have a big water bowl. So that's really the basics of what you need. So you're keeping a hot end of around 86 to 88, something like that. You can go up to 90, 91, 92, the highest part of summer, but I don't actually think that's the best for them. I think they like it in the upper 80s as a hot side. And then I go down to the upper 70s, low 80s, depending on the time of the year. On that side, humidity, I try to moderate it to about 60% and then offer humidity retreats. I like paper substrate, but you could also use coconut or something else if you like. And I'd encourage you to jump right into a 4-foot viv if you're just going to get one or two, or this is your first one, because that will set that snake up for quite a while. Set it up for, I'd say at least 3 years, maybe more. And there's no reason you couldn't put a well-established baby in here and enjoy it. The only thing you might want to do is not get sliding doors. You might want to get a hinge door one, because really small boas, sometimes they like to get in that space between the glass and the tracks, and it can be a real pain in the rear. So a hinge one would avoid that. But if you're just thinking about it and you've got a couple of months and you might be able to acquire a 4-foot viv, I think a single setup with the heat panel and a thermostat, you can probably get that for $500, and you'll be set for 3-4 years, maybe even if you had a small male longer. But just to give you an idea of what you're going to be dealing with in the 3-year period, this is a male 3-year-old. This is actually where he lives, so I don't have any plans to upgrade him for a couple of years, if ever, depending on how big he gets. He's about 4 feet now. But if you can see how big they're going to grow in the next 3 years when they're going to do most of their growing, it might actually be an economy to just jump right into this higher end cage for yourself. And then you're going to be set up perfectly, and it's professional, and it manages heat and humidity very well, and it's secure. So I tell you, that's not a bad thing. Beyond that, I think the only other two controversial topics are feeding and how you're handling and dealing with these boas, because especially when they're babies, they can be a little bit hissy. But I would tell you, as far as feeding goes, and I'm specifically talking about a well-established, probably captive bred baby, it is true that you want to be conservative with feeding, but I'd also tell you not to be afraid of feeding them. I'm feeding that litter. I started them off on what would be considered a small mouse or a hopper mouse, a fully weaned mouse. I don't think that pinky mice should be in your vocabulary with true red-tailed boas ever. I think fuzzy mice, maybe it might be something to justify doing once or twice as you get them going, just as a test to be conservative. But unless you have a problem snake or you're dealing with a wild caught or imported, I would tell you that those snakes can start eating hopper mice. And at this point, at 7 months old, I'm feeding them every 7 to 10 days on either what's considered a small mouse or a medium mouse. So fully mature weaned mice, smaller mediums, every 7 to 10 days. And they are doing really well on that. Some people are going to argue with me that that's too heavy, and I'm not saying to continue on the 7 to 10 day schedule throughout their life. But in the first year, I believe that you will see a nice, robust, strong boa. If you're feeding less frequently than that and you have the experience to know that you can create a strong, well muscle massed boa with lower feeding, that's great. I won't argue with you. But I will also tell you, if you're sitting here with your first boa and you're feeding it a fuzzy mouse every 2 to 3 weeks, and then you're going to post on here that I'm overfeeding, I will tell you that you need to get real with the body condition on your boa. And a baby boa should be muscled and feel heavy and strong for its size. And that's just my personal opinion on that. So you can take it for what you will. And the last thing I'm going to try to do is get somebody in here to videotape me on demonstrating how to pick up a less than calm boa. So it's a nice little hack for you. Thanks so much. All right, as promised, for your pleasure or maybe entertainment, I'm going to show you how to pick up a boa that doesn't have a real calm personality. And so the first thing I tell you is this can be intimidating if you're a new boa owner, and I'll just tell you that's okay because they're intimidating. But this snake is pretty nervous still, and these are about 7 months old, and when I first had this whole litter, all of these snakes were a little bit hissy and a little bit nippy, and this one just held on to it a little bit longer than the other. And if you can see, it's very much hyper vigilant. It's keen in on me. That's a little bit of a half-cocked position, and if I just stuck my hand and tried to pick it up right now, it would bite me. But the way to think about this is a defensive position on a vulnerable creature. And so if you thought of yourself as like a little pipsqueak in a bar and this gigantic person was standing over you, you might put your hands up and you might threaten to punch, but you're actually going to be pretty punch adverse because you really don't want to get in the tangle with that. And that's the same thing with these boas. So I'm going to kind of just show you a technique. I call it the hand and scoop that will get you through most of these without getting bit. I'm not going to say you'll never get bit doing this, but it's a really easy way to handle these snakes. But it's just very simple. You go hand, lift. And then if you can keep it focused in over here, it's not going to bite your hand, most likely. So as long as you can keep it over here, it's going to not bite you. So if you see, it's very bite adverse, actually. It just hissed on me, but it actually does not really want to tangle with me. So when I put it down, the key is to keep it over here. This is when you're most likely to get bit, is when it realizes that you were actually holding it, and put it down. So if you see, it's now done. It's still hyper vigilant. It is still a little bit stressed out. So I'm going to do it one more time and then put it back because I don't want to overly stress this animal. But it's a hand. It's actually very hard for it to bite like that. Pick up. There you go. And then you can kind of see there's different modes that this snake is going in. Right now it's nervous, but it's actually engaging its thinking brain a little bit more. It's flicking its tongue around. It's not acting super nervous and cocked still. It's not calm, but it's a little more calm than it was. So now it keyed in on my arm. So I want to bring it back over here so it doesn't bite me. Put it back down. Keep it focused up. Oh, this is when you might get bit, when it sees your hand. Get out. Again, still nervous. Hand. There. And now I'm playing with my luck. So you just also need to respect that the boa is what it is. Keep his hands over here and get out. And that's how you do it.